everyone, and welcome to the Summit 3 presented by Gigabyte. This is the pre-show. I'm Dakota, also known as Coddle Guy, and look at this ridiculously handsome couch, or couches rather, I have with me here.
I think he's speaking for himself, mostly.
Just right here. That couch,
at
not
least
so
that
good.
Couch.
Handsome couch here, that couch, yeah. So
we make up for it in Dota playing ability.
exactly.
Ooh.
Everyone here, 5K. I balance it out to make it a nice equal 2K MR average. So with that, gentlemen, welcome. We'll start over here. Purge, how you doing, my friend?
I'm really good. I'm excited to watch the games. Rave versus VG Gaming's up first, and a lot of really other good teams here at the tournament. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Excellent. Also joining us, the illustrious Cinderin. How you feeling today, friend?
Feeling good. Looking at you makes me feel good.
Did you have a good breakfast?
Yeah, I did. It was pretty
Excellent.
good. Love
Wonderful.
scrambled eggs.
Excellent. Finally, last but not least, Paka. Gods. How you doing, my man?
I'm feeling good. It's been a fun couple of weeks, couple of months, and glad shit's finally begun.
So let's do it, gentlemen. So as you kind of hinted at today, we're going to talk just a little bit about the schedule, what's to come. We could break down a couple of the teams and maybe show some awesome content along the way. So leading off today, a big hitter. It's going to be Rave taking on VG Gaming. Rave, we were talking about it a bit at the start. This is one of the couple of teams that have been a bit, I don't want to say out of practice, but they have been out of the limelight for quite a while. Haven't really been able to flex their wings as far as 6.84 play. Not, equal to some of the other teams like their opponents in VG Gaming. So we only want to touch on it briefly here, but what do you think, Purge? Strong points for Rave Gaming. What makes them such a good squad?
They've had a lot of practice being together on a team. They haven't changed their roster since, I think, May of last year, where they swapped out Pyong to their manager spot, and they picked up Ninja Boogie shortly after, somewhere around there, a little bit after TI. But they're a really high aggression team. They, at least back then, they used to pick a lot of heroes like Centaur and go around the map ganking a lot with their supports and their off lanes. And they're just really high individually skilled, talented team. So I think they're a really good team. They missed the TI qualifier invite, unfortunately for them, but I think they're very close to the edge. That was maybe the one team that people thought deserved it. So I think they could have a really big showing here, depending on how well they adapted the patch. And since they have such high mechanical skill, I feel like they should be able to adapt to the new patch, because I think it has more opportunities to take advantage of that than it did in the previous patch.
A lot of people are counting them out, but we haven't seen them really flourish in this patch. This could be Rave's patch for all we know.
Yeah.
That's the big question for a lot of these teams. Everybody just kind of assumes that they're big on Secret, they're big on EG, but this might not be their patch. This might be the chance for your LGD and your Rave to really shine. So that's a big deal. So Rave, they're going to be taking on VG Gaming for our first best of 3. So since we got to dabble a little bit on Rave, Cinderin, VG Gaming, they've looked strong. They were great at Star Ladder, and then as of recent, they've been kind of been taken down. I believe it was Empire who most recently stomped them almost 0-2.
I think VG Gaming didn't lose a single match in a month. And then, when was that? A few days ago?
Yeah, last weekend.
Last weekend they did lose to Empire, and they didn't lose once, they lost twice.
Yeah.
They lost 2-1, and then they lost 2-0 in the grand finals as well, with an advantage for Empire going in. So I think, every team loses at some point, right? I don't want to read too much into it. It was a really big accomplishment for Empire, and beating them twice is an incredible feat, but for me that doesn't dethrone VG Gaming as such. Like, it needs to become a recurring thing before I would take them a step down. I still consider them, over the course of the last few months, the best team in the world. I think they have been exceptionally good. And for them to lose, the question is, how do they handle that? Do they step up their game? Are they even more prepared now? Was it, like, how big of a role did the version play? Did they get taken by surprise? I've been talking about how generally they seem really good at adapting during series. If they lose to a strategy in Game 1, they're really good at finding a solution in Game 2, but they never really found a solution to Empire at all, it seemed. In all of those games, they played 5 games, they only won 1, so...
Yeah.
Difficult to say right now, honestly. I still consider them easily favorite for top 3, but if they're the overall favorite by now, that's a little bit hard to say.
Speaking about VG Gaming's strategy, I think even big picture-wise, they have a very different strategy to like EG, Cloud9, Secret. They're playing a ton of tournaments right now, and it feels like going into TI, their idea is, let's play as many tournaments as possible. When you play as many tournaments as they do, you're going to lose some, not even based on fatigue, just by raw statistics say you can't win every tournament. At some point, Dota's a game where the better team doesn't always necessarily win. On a given day, if a weaker team plays amazingly well, they come up with a strategy that works, they're going to pull off a win here or there. And not to say that's what happened with Empire, but I feel like VG Gaming, they've got D2CL, ESL1, Summit 3 now. They're coming from event to event to event. They're going to lose one here or there. Then they have the events in China like I-League, Mars Dota League, so you can't expect them to win them all, and it feels like their idea is just, this gives them more chances to experiment with picks, drafts, to figure out what's going to be best come TI5. It really feels like VG Gaming has a long-term strategy playing this many tournaments.
They're just one of those teams that, I mean, this could just be my own opinion, whether it's win or lose, they seem to be mentally strong. I mean, they always seem to be in a delightful mood. It took them all but 2 minutes to come into the house, sit down, and play Lethal League. Like, they were just like, you wouldn't think they were here to compete for, like, what, $300,000 plus odd dollars. They're like, we just want to be here, we want to have a good time, and I think that's a good attitude to have coming to a tournament like this, and that's, I guess, the nice thing for the Summit. It's very casual. You know, you're not there like, okay, we got to get you all mic'd up. You get the limelight, the stage, the lights all flashing, the audience yelling in your face. You know, so it's good to come into something like this and be relaxed and have a good time. Do you think that's something that could help you out in a Dota match?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the reason they came. Have a nice time. You know, they've won a lot of money in the last few months. They played a Star Ladder. You know, they got second place at the other tournament as well. So I think they're in a good place and should have a really good chance of placing high.
Excellent. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and let's check out some highlights from Vici Gaming. So, Vici Gaming, they look damn good. I mean, those highlights could be up there with some of the best. And one of the best things, Ice Ice Ice, the trolley plays. I believe, were you casting that live, Cinderin? Was that you?
I was casting.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I actually talked to him at the after party about it, and he was like, I wasn't trying to, like, just get into his head. I just knew that was the only way he would stop his BKB. That's, like, how next level he thinks. Like, he's like, what's the only way I'll stop him? And instantly, bam, drops his Yules on the ground. I was like, come on, go ahead.
That's so heads up.
Yeah,
I can't believe that. I would have been like, I accidentally dropped my item. Please don't kill it.
I did it on purpose, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, yeah, it was mental games. It was good. So Vici Gaming, they are going to be taking on Rave. Many consider not really a tough test, but I already talked about how this could be their patch. We question how rusty they could be. So before we check out a little bit more about them, Gods, we didn't hear you talk about Rave at all, and you're a big C fanboy. We know that. What do you think, man?
This, I mean, for a long time around the DAC era, they were the best team in Southeast Asia at a time where Southeast Asia wasn't looking that strong. And that's where, at the moment, Malaysia's come back. There's some real competition. I think even teams like Mineski and Signature Trust have gotten their things together a lot. So for Rave, this is going to be really a time to prove themselves. I don't think they have to look to dominate. This is not an event they're going to come into expecting to dominate. For them, it's like, let's try and take some games, take a series here or there, because they need to really get in some good form with TI qualifiers coming up. And that's where I feel like this is a team with incredible individual talent. Their solo players, Rio and Chrissy Tamiya, up there with the best of them. They may not get the same praise or hype as some of the other solos, but these guys are incredibly talented, and I think they can compete. It's going to come down to the drafts and strategy.
Now, what would you think about thinking it from this perspective? TI qualifier invites just went out. Or invites, rather, just went out. And some people consider they might have been stiffed, and that Team Malaysia got the proper invite over them. Would you agree with that, Purge?
You know, I put them on my compendium. I thought that they were going to get the direct invite, but as we look at some of the stats, they had some recent performances, even against teams like MVP Phoenix, or that they ended up losing sets to. MVP Phoenix is another pretty good C team. They are currently in Korea, obviously. And they lost sets to them, so if they couldn't even beat the best teams in C, then you could justify that maybe they weren't quite up to par. I mean, if the qualifiers went out right after DAC, I think they definitely get an invite, but there were a couple months after that. Their performance wasn't completely as stellar as that. The 5th place at DAC was amazing for them, definitely.
Yes.
And they just hadn't been performing quite as well. I think they have a really good shot of winning the Open, or the qualifier, but I think skipping them out on the direct invite was the right choice as we looked at the data.
So Cinderin, now that they've been skipped out on the invite, do you think that they'll come back that much stronger? Like, we got something to prove that we didn't get this invite and we deserve it. Do you think they're going to come extra hard here at the Summit?
Yeah, that's the question. I was actually going to ask the exact same question. I was thinking, okay, is it a good or a bad thing for the team that they don't get the direct invite? Because obviously, I think some teams will be a little more relaxed. All right, we're in TI, we're safe, we can focus a little more on practice. We don't have to pull out our best performances in matches and really make sure we're at our top form going into the qualies. I think for a team like Rave, I think they're here to prove a point, honestly. I also picked them as my SEA team in the compendium. I thought they were going to get invited over Malaysia. It was a difficult choice because as far as star power and like regular or recent power rankings, I would pick Malaysia. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, they did have the best result, and you know.
You also look at who's on Malaysia. They have success in past TIs. You look at Rave, they only have, I think, one player who's been in a past TI in Jo, and he didn't do particularly well with that EG team. So
I think. You know, it's impossible to say, right? But I think they have something to prove, and they're going to bring their A game here. Now, whether that's going to be enough is the question. And then going forward, if they have a bad tournament here, then the question is what the implications are in the qualifiers. But, I mean, we'll see that soon enough.
Absolutely. So with that, we have some highlights. Let's go ahead and check out Rave Gaming and, well, how good they actually are. Wow. All right. So Rave, their highlight video looks just as stellar as Vici Gaming. So that's going to be one hell of a matchup. We've talked enough about it for now. We can go and dissect the, the actual head-to-head matchup a little down the road, gentlemen. But we have, after that, a best-of-3 matchup, and this is a good one, Burge. EG taking on Cloud9. Whew.
So
what do you think?
The first thing is that Cinderin pointed this out when we were looking at the data before this. EG hasn't played an official match on 6.84 yet, which means we don't really know what's going to happen or what they're going to pick. I haven't talked to anybody that's scrimmed against them or anything like that, so that's going to be a bit of a weird match. And Cloud9's actually looking really good right now. They've been performing pretty well. They did well at Star Ladder. I think they got 3rd place, if I'm not mistaken, so they did really well at Star Ladder, and they've been placing high at a lot of other tournaments. I feel like there's a lot of synergy in their team as well. So if there's a team that can beat EG, I think Cloud9 definitely has a shot at it. And like we said, we haven't seen EG play at all this patch, but I think it's still safe to say that they're one of the best teams in the world right now. Definitely top 3, maybe. That's how they've been performing the last 6 months or so. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out.
Loving the Big Daddy photo here, showing his team pride right there.
Every single one of them, I'm pretty sure, has a different jersey. We've got Fada and Sigma over here.
At least Eternal Envy's on it, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's got cover for the team. So
they're a bit of a team of people from other teams. They're really a coagulation.
A hodgepodge.
Yeah, they really were, but they really fit together well. Like at first, when the team roster got changed, I was like, maybe they'll do well, but who knows? But they've really made a serious Cloud9 team. I feel like they're definitely better than the previous iteration of Cloud9 that performed at the last TI. I'm really confident with their players. All of their roles are really well played, and yeah, I like them all as a team.
I said it before for VG Gaming, almost can be stone cold, and then just have a good old time and just play their game, and they don't seem really at a loss when they take a loss. I almost want to say the opposite for Cloud9. They seem to be one of the more emotional teams. Like, they really get into it. Like, I mean, even yesterday, the doors closed, they're in there, they're grinding their practice, and you could just hear them going ham in there. So it's a good and a bad thing to have, I can almost say. I don't know, Cinder, what do you think about being, like, really into the game, really being emotional about it?
I think Yeah, like you said, it can be good or bad. I think the examples of it being good for them is that they have a tendency to, when they get ahead in the game, they really stay ahead. Then they sometimes have struggled with ending games, but they're really good at building a lead and riding the momentum in the game. And it's not like, oh, we get ahead, we can relax a little bit. They constantly look for how do we get more ahead, take advantage of the map, out-farm them, just control everything. But on the other hand, if they have a devastating loss where they've worked really hard and then they mess up, we've seen quite a few best-of-3 series where the game 3 just falls apart. Like they try to be a little bit too cute with some of their picks. There's not the same kind of synergy in their lineup, and they seem to have less of a clear idea of what they want to do, and it's really unfortunate because they just have these off games that just end up really not doing the team justice sometimes, and that's a mental thing.
They have
it has to be.
It's their reputation. They win the game that that's why they've gained second place. These games that really matter, they just somehow don't always deliver. But their passion and how into Dota is, they theory crafts absolutely. They're coming up with more new strats than most teams out there. They're really fine-tuning every little thing. You talk to Envy and he tells you like every tiny little detail about the build, like how many levels of stats you want in a certain hero to make sure you have the right mana for X, Y, and Z. And he knows like all the numbers. His team do as well. Like these guys know Dota back to front.
All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and check out some highlights here from Cloud9. Let's see how good they are. Cloud9. My intro to the video was definitely not hype. It was actually terrible, but the video itself was actually pretty awesome. So quick shout out to Peter McCormick. He puts that stuff together, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. So they're going to be taking on the Evil Geniuses. You already said how they have not been competing in 6.84, but it's PPD, the mad scientist drafter. He's got to come up with something good for this patch. Do you think we might see something that no other team has really been touching?
Yeah, I think there hasn't been that much variety in some hero picks. I think people are a little scared to try some of the new items as well. We saw an Octarine Core on a Naga Siren yesterday on a match, and I think there's a lot of growth that could be had in some of those heroes. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of meta development during this tournament because there's a lot of money on the line. So we'll see a lot of people pulling out the big picks, the heroes that they think are actually good in the patch and situationally useful. And I'm sure that's going to change up a lot of how our bans are working as the tournament goes on.
For this lineup, they have been damn solid. I mean, normally I'd be like, it's Sumail. He seems to be the prodigy, the young all-star here. Young, it seems to be exaggerated. He's the youngest player I think I've ever seen. He looks like a child, literally, when he's playing these games. But he is disgustingly good at what he does. Yeah. And this is normally I'd be like, Cinder, do you think being so young, there'll be those bit of nerves? But he's already shown that he's a stone-cold killer and he can get it done. Yeah. Any lingering impressions as far as Sumail and what we can expect from him?
He is incredibly good at dealing with pressure, I feel. Like he came into DAC, he had to perform, and you actually couldn't tell that was his first major LAN event, right? It might have been the second.
He played at D2L shortly before,
played, and that didn't go too well, but he didn't by any means like choke at that event.
He played decently.
He played fine.
I think EG got third place at that event out of 4 teams.
But he is exceptionally good. He's a very aggressive player in lane and favors heroes that are very active. He's, I guess, mainly his strongest hero is probably Storm Spirit and Shadow Fiend. We've also seen him pull out the Tinker, who actually got buffed quite a bit in this patch. Could maybe be a pick for EG. And my main question for this team is, when you look at how they've played in the past, they seem to have they're a little more laid back in their approach to the game. They like farming up their supports a bit more with AUI 2000. PPD being a very sacrificial support. You saw their play at DAC was a lot revolving, especially in the grand finals, around getting the Enigma, having the enemy team challenge you, and you take advantage of them trying to play aggressively. But in this patch, it seems like it's really about being aggressive yourself too. And that's one of the question marks I have for EG. How good are they at that? We haven't seen it we haven't seen them on the patch. It's a little bit of a different style from how they play.
That's not what PPD and AUI do, but
so that's the biggest question for me is can they play the patch?
These guys are veterans. They're amazing players, so I feel like it may not be their style, but they can adapt.
Or they can play their own old style
who knows,
that it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, maybe the old style still can work. It's kind of still too soon to say with 6.84.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and check out some highlights from the Evil Geniuses.
Let's see how good they are.
Should be one hell of a matchup. I'm certainly looking forward to that. Teams where they've kind of changed up rosters with each other a bit. There always seems that little bit of spice amongst each other, a little bit of bitterness. So I'm hoping to see a lot more of that here. So with that, we're going to quickly throw it to a break. Before we do that, quick shout-outs, of course. We are presented by GIGABYTE. You can see their nice little display right behind my head. Fancy motherboards and fancy video cards here, available. And, of course, we also have the Score here hanging out. They are going to be here on site doing some interviews. I believe you're talking about how they have live data that they're pushing out. You're an avid Score person.
Live stat tracking for the tournament here. They have a bunch of people back at their office doing the live stat tracking. So if you guys can't watch the stream, if you're at work or something like that, pull up the app on your phone and you can check out the stats.
All right, so check it out. With that, folks, we're going to go ahead and throw it to a break. When we come back, it's going to be Vici Gaming versus Vici Gaming versus Rave. I am not feeling it right now, apparently. You jinxed me on the last one. All right, guys, we'll see you in a moment. Take care.